Story 1. The Haunting Confession. Detective James Mitchell had seen it all in his years on the force, but nothing could have prepared him for the chilling confession that would haunt his dreams for the rest of his life. It was a cold, rainy night when a disheveled man named Henry walked into the police station. His eyes were bloodshot, and he trembled as he approached the front desk. "I need to confess," Henry muttered, his voice barely audible. James gestured for Henry to sit down in the interrogation room. As soon as they were alone, Henry began to speak, his words sending shivers down James's spine. "I killed them," Henry said, his gaze fixed on the table. "I killed them all." James leaned forward, his heart pounding in his chest. "Who did you kill?" Henry's eyes met James's, and he spoke in a voice devoid of emotion. "I killed every officer who ever wore badge number 328. James felt a chill run down his spine. Badge number 328 had been his badge for the past 10 years. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. Henry went on to describe in gruesome detail how he had stalked and murdered each of the officers, all of whom had worn badge number 328 at some point in their careers. He knew things that only the killer could have known, and the evidence was mounting against him. As the interrogation continued, James's phone buzzed with a text message. It was a photo of his wife and children, taken from inside his own home. The message read, "We're next." Fear gripped James as he realized that Henry was not acting alone. Someone had been watching him, someone who knew about his badge number and his family. The investigation into Henry's claims uncovered a web of corruption within the police department. It seemed that badge number 328 had been cursed, and those who had worn it had been involved in some heinous crimes. The truth was more horrifying than James could have ever imagined. In the end, Henry was found dead in his cell, an apparent suicide. But James couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more sinister at play, something that went far beyond one man's confession. To this day, Detective James Mitchell can't sleep at night. He still receives anonymous messages and photos that remind him of the haunting confession and the curse of badge number 328. Story 2. The Ghostly Pursuit. Detective Sarah Harris had always been a skeptic when it came to the supernatural, but a series of eerie events would change her beliefs forever. It all began with a routine investigation into a string of unsolved murders. The victims were all women, and their bodies had been found in abandoned buildings, each with a cryptic message etched into their flesh. As Sarah delved deeper into the case, she began to notice strange occurrences. Shadows moved in the corners of her vision, and a chilling breeze seemed to follow her wherever she went. She dismissed these as figments of her imagination until one night, while working late at the precinct, she saw a figure in her peripheral vision. Turning quickly, she saw the ghostly apparition of a woman in tattered clothing, her eyes filled with sorrow. Sarah's heart raced as the ghost pointed toward a stack of case files. She approached cautiously and found a file labeled, "Cold Case Number 47. Opening the file, Sarah discovered a connection between the victims and a long-forgotten cult that practiced dark rituals in the very buildings where the murders had taken place. The cult had been disbanded decades ago, but their malevolent presence lingered. Sarah's obsession with solving the case grew, and she became consumed by the need to bring the killer to justice. She worked tirelessly, even as the supernatural occurrences escalated. Objects moved on their own, eerie whispers filled the empty hallways, and the ghostly woman appeared more frequently, her message becoming clearer each time: "Find him." The breakthrough finally came when Sarah uncovered a photograph of the cult leader, a man who had disappeared without a trace. The ghostly woman nodded in approval as Sarah recognized the face. With renewed determination, Sarah followed the trail of the cult leader, chasing him to an abandoned warehouse. As she confronted him, the ghostly woman materialized one last time, her ethereal hand guiding Sarah's aim. The cult leader met his end, and the malevolent presence that had haunted her vanished. In the aftermath, Sarah Harris couldn't deny the existence of the supernatural. The ghostly woman's message had been a plea for justice, and Sarah had answered the call. She retired from the force, forever haunted by the ghostly pursuit that had changed her life. Story 3: The Cursed Interrogation Room. Detective Michael Turner had always been known for his tough demeanor, but nothing could have prepared him for the terror that awaited him in the cursed interrogation room. The room had a sinister reputation among the officers in the precinct. Over the years, several suspects had died mysteriously while being questioned within its walls. The deaths were always ruled as accidents, but the officers whispered about a malevolent force that inhabited the room. One rainy night, Michael was called to interrogate a suspect in a high-profile murder case. As he entered the room, he felt an icy chill in the air. The overhead light flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Ignoring the unease that gnawed at him, he began questioning the suspect. But as the interrogation progressed, Michael noticed something unusual. The suspect's eyes seemed to glaze over, and his voice took on a hollow, otherworldly tone. He began speaking in a language Michael couldn't understand, his words sending shivers down his spine. Suddenly, the room grew pitch black, and Michael could hear whispered voices all around him. It felt as though unseen hands were gripping his throat, choking the life out of him. Desperate, he fumbled for the light switch and managed to illuminate the room once more. The suspect's eyes had returned to normal, and he seemed unaware of the terrifying ordeal that had just transpired. Michael quickly ended the interrogation and rushed out of the room, shaken to his core. He began researching the history of the cursed interrogation room and discovered a dark secret. Decades ago, it had been the site of a brutal murder, and the malevolent spirit of the victim was said to haunt the room, seeking vengeance against anyone who entered. Michael's encounters with the supernatural continued. He would hear the ghostly whispers in his sleep, and the room's chilling presence lingered with him, even when he was far from it. He couldn't escape the feeling that the vengeful spirit had marked him. In the end, Detective Michael Turner requested a transfer out of the precinct, leaving behind the cursed interrogation room and the haunting memories that would forever haunt his dreams. The room remained sealed, a dark and foreboding place that no one dared to enter, for fear of the malevolent force that dwelled within.